study to make its case that it's time to expand. The study concluded a booster given 11 months after the last vaccine could restore protection against symptomatic infection to about 95%, even as the extra contagious Delta variant was surging. Side effects were similar to those seen with the company's first two shots.
Quarterback Aaron Rodgers admits he misled people about his COVID vaccination status, but he says he stands behind the comments he made. He did not get vaccinated and has now tested positive. A review of emergency plans for that music festival in Houston shows it did not include protocols for dangerous crowd surges, like the one during the Travis Scott concert on Friday night. 8 people died. Hundreds of others were injured. More than 20 lawsuits have already been filed. By Friday, the National Archives plans to turn over former President Trump's records to a House committee investigating the January 6th riot. But the former president's promising an appeal after a federal judge turned down his request to block the release of documents. The AP's Jackie Quinn.
U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan refused the request, saying President Joe Biden is best positioned to determine if executive privilege should be waived, which Biden did last month. According to a filing by the National Archives, the documents being sought include call logs, drafts of remarks, and handwritten notes from Trump's then Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows.
This is AP News. Brian Williams says he's leaving NBC News at the end of the year.
Calling it the end of a chapter and the beginning of another, Brian Williams says he is leaving NBC after 28 years. Williams says in a note to his colleagues that he'll be leaving the network when his contract ends in December. He didn't specify why, other than to say that his leave-taking comes following much reflection. Williams remade his career on MSNBC after losing his job as anchor of NBC Nightly News for making false claims about a wartime story. He promises in his note that he will pop up again somewhere. I'm Oscar Wells Gabriel.
Casinos had their best few months ever in the third quarter, making nearly $14 billion. That's more revenue than for all of 2020, they say. More consumers feel comfortable visiting casinos now. Casinos are back on track to break the yearly record of more than $43.5 billion set in 2019.
All right, Pastor Vicki, I'm almost there. Good to see you. Hey, Andre. Hey, Dave. Hey, Linda, Michael, Ann, Daryl, everybody, Maddie, Louie. How you doing? I pray that you all are well today. Got a lot to talk about. A lot of people want to talk about the Ahmaud Arbery case and the Kyle Rittenhouse case. It's very interesting that they are playing out at the same time. And so we're going to have, of course, C.K. Hoffler on to talk to us about that today, to help us to wend our way through that, because it is a lot. And then we're going to be talking about, Pastor Vicki. It's interesting, Moderna is filing to, they're filing to be used more widely in the United States, and then there are other countries that are not allowing them to be used for anyone under 30. And I want to know if that's something that we should be looking at too. Like, what are these other countries looking at? Do they have the same metric? I mean, are they formulated the same way in different countries? Because because that can make a difference too. So
to have a place at the table.
And everybody, I'm just trying to get all the information I can for you so that we can make some informed decisions.
Go to mercyship.org.
But it looks informed decisions.
Is that they want more people to die. Now, why would they want more people to die? Well, because if they can get the pandemic rolling again here in the United States, it will cause states to shut down. And if states shut down, then the economy goes in the tank. And if the economy goes in the tank, the party in power always loses the next election.
The Tom Hartman radio program.
All right.
7 a.m. to 2 p.m. on WCPT 820, where facts matter. 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you.
ComEd Energy Efficiency.
Hey, everybody. I'm so glad to be with you today. Always. It's always a joy.
On Energy Star Appliances.
So let's go right here.
So you can
All right. Okay.
Discover more ways to save at ComEd.com.
10 seconds.
Okay.
Powering lives.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk. Where
Just keep me
facts
down a couple minutes. Not a couple minutes, 2 seconds.
Can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's a joy to be with you today. Wow. Wednesday, November 10th, 2021, just before Veterans Day and before Thanksgiving. I love it. It's the holiday season, everybody. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's a joy to be with you today. Hey, you saw that power outage we had yesterday? It wasn't just this show. It was all over this area. And so we thank goodness that we were able to come back up, but there was Xfinity had an outage, and that's what happened to us yesterday. So if there's ever an outage and you know, you can't really enjoy the experience fully, go to WCPT820.com or AM950radio.com and stream the audio live. I'll stay on Facebook if you like. Okay. All right, everybody. I'm coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. And of course, meet my morning stars over here, Shirley from beautiful Philadelphia, and Linear Bob from Silicon Valley, and Raphael, Raphael, my sweet, from down there in Brazil. And let me see, Andre from Chicago, Dave from Canada, and everybody from every place. Oh, my girl, Michael Ann, one of my original morning stars, Linda, Daryl, Louie, Matty, everybody. Please meet them over on YouTube, on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. We're trying to build up those numbers, and you all have been so helpful in making that happen. 773-763-9278 is the number. 773-763-9278 is the number. Got a lot to talk about today. The Ahmaud Arbery case is moving at a pretty fast clip, and the Kyle Rittenhouse case could be half over. So we're going to be talking with C.K. Hoffler, attorney C.K. Hoffler, with legal Q&A with C.K. to really kind of tease out that. Plus, I have a couple of other cases to ask her about. What about these couples in California? They, had IVF, and then they carried each other's children, and they didn't know it, and it's been devastating, but it could be potentially healing. They could, have, siblings out of this. How about that? So it's who's liable and how does that work? There's a lot going on, but we have a lot of questions about COVID-19 and the fight over patents and all the money that's in it. Wow. And mind you, you paid for it. You paid for it. How about that? Think about that. These private companies are reaping billions, but it is American citizens who paid for the research and paid for the development of these vaccines. Think about that, everybody. Think about what they owe us. 773-763-9278, 773-763 WCPT. Let's get some of these headlines out of the way before we get some good news from this brilliant pastor, one of my favorite persons in the world, one of my favorite singers too, Reverend Vicki Johnson from St. Thomas Lutheran Church. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 57 degrees. It will be mostly cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 52 degrees. It will rain. The Dow closed down 112 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed down 95 points. And the S&P 500 closed down 16 points. In the NBA tonight, we're going to have a very interesting time between Minneapolis and Chicago. The Timberwolves will be playing the Warriors out west, and the Mavericks will be coming to Chicago to play the Bulls. In the NHL, Chicago, they bested the Penguins, 3-2, and the Wild will be playing the Coyotes later on this evening. Today is Call to Earth Day, everybody. We need to appreciate this wonderful, wonderful planet over which we have stewardship, everybody. And so today is the time to raise awareness of our environmental issues and to engage with conservationists, and to understand what we need to know how to preserve the earth. I mean, I was hearing a CNN report this morning in which they are teaching children, kindergartners, first graders, second graders, they are getting redwoods and they are learning to plant them. Isn't that wonderful? And in 10 years, they said they could be 30 or 40 feet high. Something to think about that today. Happy Earth Day, everybody. Godspeed on Earth Day. New subpoenas continue to flow from the committee investigating the January 6th insurrection. At the U.S. Capitol, the panel announced 10 more subpoenas yesterday, following 6 on Monday. The new subpoenas affect a range of high-profile officials close to former President Donald Trump during his presidency, including senior advisor Stephen Miller, the architect of many of those racist policies, everybody, and the press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany. We will see where all of this goes. They are known to be very, very close to the former president. Will they testify? That is the question. And, well, Aaron Rodgers, who has been, he's been in, not the kind of trouble that Kyrie Irving is in, but certainly a lot of people have been discussing his misleading comments about whether he's taken the vaccine or not. He did say that he was immunized, never said that he was vaccinated. Well, the NFL imposed fines Tuesday on him and on the Green Bay Packers, his team, for violations of the league's coronavirus protocols. That came hours after Rodgers said in a podcast that he stands by the comments that he made last week about his vaccination status, but he also takes full responsibility for the misleading statements that he previously made about being unvaccinated. His team was fined $300,000, and he and wide receiver Alan Lazard were fined $14,650 apiece. Moderna took the NIH, National Institutes of Health, money and help for its COVID vaccine. Now it wants to leave government scientists off the lucrative patent. What do you think about that, everybody? They are disputing some claims by NIH that it was behind the invention of the company's mRNA, that coronavirus vaccine, raising the stakes in the debate over the government's ability to exert influence over the availability and price of the vaccine in the future. Now, some people are saying that they are cheating the American people. They're cheating the U.S. taxpayers. That is the headline in from Common Dreams. What do you think about that, everybody? Should they share these patents with the people who helped to develop them at the NIH? What do you think? 13 Republicans who voted for President Biden's $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill are facing retaliation from their own party. Now, mind you, there's a Republican congressman who made a video. He said it was a cartoon. It was a cartoon of him killing AOC. He's not going to be censured. They're not. They want to take committee assignments because of a vote that you make for the people that could in your district. Oh, it's a crazy, crazy world, Pastor Vicki Johnson. St. Thomas Lutheran Church, everybody. It's at 80th and Jeffrey. 80th and Jeffrey here in Chicago. You can get a half hour of power, 11:45 a.m. to 12:15 every Sunday. Pastor Vicki Johnson, what is the good news?
Well, good morning, Santita, and good morning to all your morning stars and friends. There is good news today. November 1st was All Saints Day, a day known to celebrate the saints that are known and unknown in the church. But preceding it was Halloween, which in actuality is Holy Evening, the Holy Evening prior to All Saints Day. And then on November 2nd, it was All Souls Day for all who have died. We celebrated or commemorated this holy time of remembrance this past Sunday, remembering those who have died from this time last year until now. The names were written in the book of the dead. We honored them in worship by lighting candles, calling their names, and ringing a bell following each name. This year, this very solemn celebration took on a different meaning, as we know so many people who have made their transitions during this pandemic. While attending a wedding anniversary celebration this past weekend, a time of joy, my friend, Professor L. Stanley Davis, shared with us that he has been personally impacted by over 40 deaths. 40 deaths since last year. Everyone did not die from COVID-19, but some did die from the impact COVID-19 had on their lives. Sheltering in place, void of social interactions, missing doctor's appointments, and just the fear of contracting the virus. This fear was very real, as there are over 46 million COVID-19 cases in the U.S. and nearly 800,000 deaths. These people who are no longer with us on earth had families and friends who may yet be mourning their loss. So we took time out to just say their names. It is very important for us to say their names, for if we don't say their names, who will? Their lives had some kind of impact, and they should not be forgotten by us. We say the names of those who are victims of police brutality and other crimes. They are in the news, but what about our own loved ones? Our own loved ones may not be highlighted on 60 Minutes, but we can take 6 seconds to say their names. Some who have been a part of our living experience, we don't even know their names. They are just known by what they did. You know, the lady that used to work at Walgreens, or the man that worked at the corner store, the triage nurse at the hospital, or the waitress in your favorite restaurant. Think of them and smile. It is important to take time to remember. Say their names if you know them. If you don't know their names, just think of them and smile. They deserve to be remembered. If you will do this, and I believe you will, then to me, that's good news.
God bless you. Thank you. It's, and Pastor, as we go to Dr. Verholden, it's those people who, your favorite, your people who you work with at Walgreens, who are always looking out for you.
Mm-hmm.
My shout out to everybody at
Yeah.
55th and Lake Park, because that's my Walgreens. Everybody, Lakeisha, everybody, I love you, love you, love you. From there to my favorite little restaurants, the people who are looking out for me. And I have to tell you, just very quickly, when I lived in New York, boy, there were times that got very, very lean. But my mother said, "Hey, you don't want to go to med school? Fine, you must figure this out," which was okay, because I wanted to go and sing. And there were some times when I was like, "Oh my gosh, will I be able to keep my phone on? I don't have any money." Called one day to see if I could get a payment arrangement. Do you know, to make a long story short, this gentleman he never let my phone go off for 10 years. Never. He and I just ended up talking, just jawboning, and, ended up really praying, because we just started talking. He never let my phone go off for 10 years. Never. Never. You got to honor that. When I would go to Dr. Atkins' clinic in New York, I would say hello, as I walked there at the apothecary as you walked in. And I would, talk to the guys who were in there. They were just, nice guys. You walk in and you say hello. That's what we do, right, Vicki? And guess what, Pastor Vicki?
Right.
Well, I was walking out one day, going to buy my vitamins, and they huddled off to the right just for a hot second, to my right, to their left. And they started taking off 45% every time I came in there for my vitamins. I burst into tears there. I was like, "Why would you do this?" They were like, "You were so nice every time you come in, and we wanted to bless you. Girl, don't make me start. Don't let me fall into religious ecstasy right here. I know what God can do. It's no secret. It's no secret."
Yes,
And
not at all.
Just think of people. Just think of them. Oh, Joyce, absolutely. But just think of people and say their names. That way they never,
Say their name.
they live forever.
They will live.
My former singing mate, Keith Fluid. I love your show and I love you, Keith. We sang together in Miss Flack's band, but he went on to sing with Ashford and Simpson, and please everybody in the world. He's a great singer. a great soloist and a great background singer. You and I both know that there is a difference. I love you, Pastor Vicki
Yes.
Johnson. 80th and Jeffrey, everybody. 80th and Jeffrey, 11:45 to 12:15. Take 30 minutes to get your soul filled, everybody. That's right. This wonderful woman of God. You're going to be blessed. You're going to be blessed. I love you, Pastor Vicki Johnson. Thank you so much for being with us.
I love you, Santita.
Thank you. I know
for
saying
having
Santita
me.
is very hard for you, but that's okay. Thank you. Very, very
God
difficult.
bless you.
It's hard for her. It's hard. I hear her just giving me those two T's every time I bring her up.
That's right. That's right.
She's like, oh gosh, I can't wait to get off this air so I can call her Sandy again. I love you. let me bring,
Love you.
let me bring on Deborah Holden, epidemiologist. Brilliant epidemiologist. Do not take for granted that we have access to one of the most brilliant minds in the world. She came out of Johns Hopkins at the age of 24, full scholarship, and had gotten her PhD. Just brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And her fight is for equity. Equality and equity. We all don't begin at the same place. That's what equality assumes. That's probably why we love track and field and athletics so much, because presumably people begin from the same place. And that's not true, but at least you have the same starting point. Equity is, you know what, everybody starts at different places, but we all need equal access to equal high quality, whatever it is that's going to make our lives better. And so we thank God for her today. And so Michigan State University's medical school plucked her out of Johns Hopkins and said, we need a school of public health and we need you to build it. So that's who we have with us today. And I just feel that it's very important, Dr. Deborah Holden, to remind people just who you are and the caliber of expertise that you bring to this show every morning, because you don't have to do it, but we thank God for you every day. I have so many questions for you today. First, I want that picture of India that you showed us in the meeting yesterday, because the Morning Stars need to see it. Thank you very much. Since her granddaughter looks just like her. just want you to know. All right. I'm going to get her on the air because she don't send me that picture. This picture of her is just too precious. It's amazing. This baby looks just like you. Unbelievable. And she's getting so big, and praise the Lord for her health. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. I have a lot of questions for you today because I'm seeing that Moderna, for example, explain to me. We're going to bring on Dr. Knighton at the bottom of the hour, but you do policy. You really understand how all of this stuff happens. Our dollars to Pfizer, Moderna, and J&J to help develop these vaccines, and then patents come out of that, and then they're able to manufacture the vaccines. Really, they're able to walk away and privately make a lot of money that we publicly gave them, and yet these companies push back, Dr. Verholden, on now Moderna is pushing back on sharing the credit for the making of the vaccine with these scientists who worked at NIH. How does that work?
Say that last part again, Santita.
And now it turns out Moderna is pushing back on sharing the credit for the development of this vaccine with the people who work at NIH. And it just seems
well,
so.
We know that's where the blueprint came from. That's where it came from. Dr. Kismika Corbett was on that team and was leading the team that came up with the technology for the Moderna vaccine. And now they're trying to deny them credit.
When I read it, I said, I know I just saw it this morning. I just saw it. I would have sent it to you. And yes, indeed, Common Dream says they're being slammed for cheating U.S. taxpayers. Moderna came under fire Tuesday in response to a New York Times report about an ongoing dispute with the NIH over whether government scientists should be credited as co-inventors of a key component of this vaccine. And I'm just, it's like, it just seems so unfair. I know that's not like a health question, but so much of this, we're watching them make so much money. We're watching them make so much money. But it seems to me, when you're not getting the credit, that means when the Nobels and the big prizes are awarded, you won't get any credit for that. And that just doesn't seem right to me. So I just had to ask you about that, because particularly since Dr. Kismika Corbett, a young Black woman, was at the center of helping to develop that particular vaccine, and that it's unbelievable. Why are cases going up in California? And what is COVID-19 hospitalizations? It seems like more people getting vaccinated. So certainly more people are vaccinated now than there were at the beginning of the year. A little more than half of the United States have gotten these shots. So why are hospitalizations in California, our most populous state, why are they going up? What are we not doing?
We're just going to be in a never-ending cycle of this,
Okay.
right? Delta became the game changer, right? Because, the vaccine was supposed to edge us ahead of the virus, right? That was supposed to be the thing that tipped the scales where we could finally gain some traction. I've always talked about the pace of prevention versus the pace of transmission. And the virus was outpacing our mitigation efforts, right? It was spreading, much faster than we were able to effectively implement these, multiple layers to mitigate spread and impact. And so what's happened now, the thing that was supposed to be the game changer came along, the vaccine. And before we even really had the vaccine, we started removing other important layers of protection. And so the real public health power would have been in keeping all of those things in place at the same time. It would have looked very much like what we saw with Australia. Keeping all of those things in place at the same time, then adding the vaccine would have made a very different had a very different outcome than what we did. So what's happening is we're now in a cycle. So nationally, over the last few weeks, the trends were starting to go down, but not in Michigan. Not in Michigan, not in my city, not in my county. So it was really no surprise to me that we're going to start to see the cycle and ebbs and flows of transmission. And of course, when you get transmission, you will also get hospitalization and you will also get increases in deaths.
1 minute.
Because of the vaccine, a much lower percentage of cases will need to be hospitalized. And because of vaccines and therapeutics, and we just know better now how to treat COVID, there will also be a lower percentage of deaths. But if
30 seconds.
numbers are going up, then the overall numbers are going up. But the actual proportion of people who contract COVID that end up getting hospitalized or that end up dying will go down. But the cases, they're going to just continue to go in these ebbs and flows. And it's unfortunate because all it takes is one super spread event in a community and you'll be right back to where you were, at the height of the pandemic.
Well, stay right there.
And that's always the concern with holidays and all that stuff, too.
Well, that's why we're talking about these, Thanksgiving and what we're going to do about that. I have a couple more questions for you before we bring on Dr. Knighton, because there's so much going on. Now we have a couple of pills that we'll be able to take. What is that going to be like? Will it make a difference if we get the pills earlier? I mean, so should we be treated like the governor of Texas? Abbott, fully vaccinated, got COVID, mildly symptomatic. He didn't even think he had it, but they gave him Regeneron immediately so he would not be wildly symptomatic. Are we going to get access to these therapeutics like he did? Let's talk about it on the Santita Jackson Show back in just a minute. I know I keep beating the drum on therapeutics, but my thing is, I've been looking at your Swiss cheese model and it makes all the sense in the world to me. And to me, that's a piece that's a layer of the cheese that I never see in that model, Dr. Verholden. And that is problematic for me because I'm like, whoa. And then, as we've been talking over the past year, you said, well, you have to be more symptomatic. You have to be sicker before you get these medicines. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. It's crazy. It's like, no, you need to have
monoclonal antibodies, though.
Yeah, but
not monoclonal antibodies.
But they need
yeah.
So what is the difference? Help me to understand what can you take when?
That's a complicated question, right? Because it varies for different medications and course of treatment. What I can tell you about monoclonal antibodies specifically is that they're meant to be given to people early to prevent them from getting really sick.
Okay.
At the point when people are really sick, they have a lot less effectiveness, and people don't want to risk that cytokine storm that we talked about, which is basically where your immune system just...
Dr. Knighton's on the line.
You don't want to do anything to further amp up somebody's immune system when they're already struggling to fight off COVID. You want to give people the best fighting chance from the moment you know they're positive to not have a bad outcome.
Okay.
So monoclonal antibodies specifically are given to people very early. The earlier, the better. And that's what this whole notion was about. There was that article about this NIH advisory panel who had made the recommendation that if they have to ration, that they prioritize monoclonal antibodies for at-risk patients. And at-risk patients would include people who are unvaccinated. Because if you're unvaccinated, you're at higher risk for severe symptoms and hospitalization. So immunocompromised, older people, people with chronic health conditions, and people who are unvaccinated were suggested by this panel as being higher priority for receiving monoclonal antibodies, because you're basically giving it to people really before they even are sick, because the whole point is to prevent them from getting sick. So I have a friend here who contracted COVID. Actually, he got diagnosed the day after he got his vaccine, and he went back to the VA. He's an everyday smoker. They immediately gave him monoclonal antibodies. The problem is when we get to scarcity, if those resources run low, the question becomes who's going to get what and when.
Well,
yeah,
that's an issue for me. You know, when we're talking about equity and when we're talking about access, equal access, I want everyone to get what Governor Abbott got. See, that never should have happened. I never should have seen that. You know me, I send you texts and emails early in the morning, 1, 2 in the morning, because I'll pop up and think of something, or just get some information. And it's like, wait a minute, we got to know. I know there's much more that we know about this now, certainly than we did last year. I mean, last year we were all fumbling around in the dark. And don't I give people all the credit in the world for working on vaccines, therapeutics, for everything, because we need it all. And the people who make the PPEs and all of that. That having been said, well, let me do a quick mic check. Dr. Knighton, you there?
Yes.
Good morning. I just love her voice. I just have to have a little fun with Dr. Knighton. Stay right there. Everybody stay tuned. Of course, we're going to be talking about the Ahmaud Arbery and Kyle Rittenhouse cases.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. At the top of the hour, legal Q&A with CK. We'll be talking about the Kyle Rittenhouse and Ahmaud Arbery cases. Everybody has a lot of questions. Did you know that the curfew charge against Kyle Rittenhouse was dropped yesterday? He was 17, underage. I mean, don't the underage have a curfew? There's so much that I've got to ask her. So much we've got to talk about regarding those cases. But right now we have a lot of questions about COVID-19, particularly as we're going into Thanksgiving, as we work out our Thanksgiving protocols. We're 2 weeks away, everybody. Are you ready? Are you ready? We've been talking about this since last week. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Before we get into that, of course, Paula wants, she's sending much love to baby India. Everybody's sending love to baby India. Everyone wants to see what she looks like right now. And Joyce is nominating you for the world's greatest epidemiologist for a Nobel Prize. Just thought I'd let you know that today. Had to let you know that. Hey, do you deserve the love and you need the love? And we're so excited to have infection preventionist, registered nurse, research scholar from Case Western Reserve University. Indeed, she is one of the pioneers in her particular space. We're so blessed to have her every day. Just love her. And I have to tell you, I'm so proud of her. She is the first person in her family to graduate from high school. I mean, just think about that. Think about that. Think about the drive. And just think about the wonderful example she is for all of us, no matter where we started in life. No matter where we started in life, you've got to admire someone. Everybody has to get up off the mat, everybody. You don't know anyone's story. But certainly she shared that with us, and I'm so proud of her and feel so good about all the work that she does because she has taken all of that and gone into the healing space. Dr. Shanina Knighton. Let me start with you, Dr. Furholden, and then I'm going to move to Dr. Knighton, and we're going to get in with these, with Thanksgiving protocols. We talked about the pills that, that we're now beginning to see, the antivirals that will help to combat COVID. The preliminary findings, how do you feel about them? They say that they have like an effectiveness of up to 90%. Is that promising, Dr. Verholden?
Yeah, that's really great news. I mean, we talk a lot about, just the overemphasis on the vaccine and the underemphasis on things like the rest of the continuum from, preventive practices that are just very basic things that people can be practicing in their everyday life and at home, and then all the way out to the other end to include therapeutics and advancements in treatment, and all of those other things. So I think, continuing to add to the arsenal of tools that we have will be important, and adding therapeutics are an, important factor. I think a lot of the resistance that I've heard from a lot of people is they have felt like, why aren't we not talking about, things like that we were talking about early on? Like, what can people do to boost their immune system? What can people do to give themselves, and their bodies the best fighting chance, should they be exposed to COVID? So, just expanding this conversation, and also, and I really appreciate that, some of the companies have said, you know what, we're going to get out of the fray, right? Because the fray was the race to the vaccine, and we've, had, mixed success and problems along the way, et cetera. And people getting into therapeutics, I think, is great. It's a, we need to not only focus on this one aspect of mitigation, which is the vaccine. We need more than that. So I think it's promising.
You need everything, everybody. And as we're watching these vaccines, we're seeing, mixed results, as you just said, and we're seeing them all over the world. France just announced that no one under 30 will get the Moderna vaccine, and they're joining Finland and Sweden and Denmark. Is that something that we should be concerned about? Are these vaccines made up differently for different countries? Is it the same? Is it the same, recipe? Is that something we should look at, or should we be asking French officials and Finnish officials and Icelandic officials and on? Why are they limiting the use of the Moderna vaccine?
I think what's more important is we have really need the global scientific community to come together. When you've got countries, so what's in the vial is the same. The pharmaceutical companies would have it no other way. Okay. Right? So they're not getting a different vaccine. If you are getting the Moderna vaccine, there's one Moderna vaccine. There's not a U.S. version and then a UK version. But what we need is the global scientific community to come together. We need large systematic studies, and the global scientific community should be coming together. It's not happening. So even some of the reports that I've seen for example, from like the World Health Organization, I was sort of surprised because I'm like, so they're reporting on these small area studies as well. Like, why aren't we pooling all of that data so we have the most robust, representative data to help inform decision-making, not just in one particular place, but globally? So I just think that's a missed, it's an ongoing missed opportunity for us to do better. So is it something we should be concerned about? Yeah, but I'm less interested in what the government is doing and more interested in what is the science and the data underneath of those decisions. Because sometimes some of these folks make decisions not because it's the science. It's their own political survival.
We're seeing that.
You know, one adverse event or a couple adverse, it's like it's not worth the risk, or whatever. So I really want to know what the science and the data under it is, and I really wish we had a global team of scientists working collaboratively.
See, because that's my point. The way this is being done, it's problematic because there's no uniformity. It's like COVID is COVID wherever you go. Cancer is cancer wherever you go.
Yeah.
And people, if they have means, they go to different places around the world to get the cancer, to get this, that, and the other treated. And that's not what's happening here. You have this country that's suspending usage, and this, it's like, whoa, wait a minute, stop. And you know me, and if you just read the news and read it a lot as I do, these stories are not coming from crazy places. This is coming from the Jerusalem Post. This is coming from Reuters. These are credible corporate news organizations, and they're the ones who are putting out these stories. Okay, Dr. Deb, now you and Dr. Knighton, yes, please.
I was just going to say, and I agree with that. And the problem that I have is, and I've heard this even too, from the science community, is the irritation with the cherry picking. And when I say cherry picking, meaning we can't say, oh, well, Wuhan has these findings. Let these findings support our work over in the United States. But then say, oh, well, what they're finding in Denmark is not relevant to the United States. So that's the thing, and I think if there was some transparency of what that process looks like for the public, then maybe people would have a better understanding of picking and choosing in regards to what information is being used from abroad, to make some of the decisions. And that's the problem.
And that's the problem for me, Dr. Knighton and Dr. Verholden. I want to hear more of what you have to say. I want to hear more doctors talking. I don't want to hear fewer people. I don't want to hear one person. I want to hear different voices speaking out and asking different questions. So I want to thank you for that. Thank you for that, because these stories are out here. Josephine Perry said her question is this: what is the impact of drug use, smoking, for example, on COVID-19? Either of you ladies want to take a crack at that?
Like the impact of smoking?
Yes, smoking and drug use.
So one of the things that we have to remember is that I'm just going to start with the lungs first. And that's the fact that your body is immunocompromised, okay? Meaning, and when I'm saying immunocompromised, not necessarily the way in which we use it in science, but that it's a respiratory infectious disease, which means that it is already attacking your lungs. So imagine you compromising your lungs further by partaking in smoking cigarettes, smoking marijuana, or anything, and thinking about what those detrimental effects further do to your lungs that are already compromised. So I think that that's one of the things to talk about in terms of risk. When we're talking about drug use, just drugs in general have a bad effect on the heart. They have a bad effect on the liver. They have a bad effect on the kidneys. So you think about all of the organs that are being harmed already by the use of drugs. And then you think about that along with the fact that COVID-19 causes all of this havoc on your ACE2 receptors. And these receptors that I'm talking about, they run through your brain, your heart, the same exact places that
Someone's opening a door.
I know, I heard that. That was a lot. Freaky door. So just imagine already you having harm done to your system based off of what you're putting in it, and then you got COVID-19 that says, oh, these areas, these organs vulnerable. Let me go ahead and harm them further. And while I haven't seen any studies on it, just like we know 1 and 1 is 2, I can imagine that these potentially are some of the cases that are ending up when we're talking about having to get dialysis or somebody going into liver failure. I'm sure heart failure. I'm sure that these have to do with a lot of these cases, even though that's not something that's being readily put out in the literature.
Dr. Knighton, before we go into Thanksgiving, excuse me, because now I just saw, I think it was Dave that just asked about cannabis. Because now that's becoming That's being legalized increasingly. I mean, are these things that people should curb in this pandemic just to increase our healthfulness? Should we be mindful of this?
Well, let me say this. Go ahead.
The only issue I'm gonna add before Dr. Deb popped in here is the problem that is going on in a lot of, I ain't gonna say just Black communities, but communities period, is the fact that they're sharing still. So they putting their same hands and their same mouth on the same joint, and that's the issue right now. Vaping pens. So people sharing the same stuff and don't realize that this also is a high transmitter for COVID.
Hadn't thought about that. Thank you, Dr. Knighton. Ooh, Dr. Furholden. Ooh.
Yeah, I would like more explicitly. Anytime you put smoke in your lungs is a bad thing. I just want to be really, really clear. If we could, putting smoke in the lungs causes all kinds of problems. The body wasn't designed to inhale smoke. Now, what we know is that if you go back much further in time, and I love it, I was at this conference over the weekend, and a Native American woman spoke, and she talked about what she called the old knowledge, the age-old wisdom and knowledge that Native American culture has been bringing forward for thousands of years. And then she compared that to what she called the young knowledge. And the young knowledge is the new knowledge that we have that we've just learned in this century or in the last 2 centuries. But it pales in comparison to what she called the old knowledge. I thought it was such a cool way to distinguish it because you think old versus new. You always want new. You want an old car or a new car. You want an old thing or a new thing. You want a new thing. But she talks about the old knowledge versus the young knowledge. So there's a lot of old knowledge. And if you look, the Native Americans who smoked weren't getting lung cancer, you know, and that's because what we used to smoke was a lot purer, a lot simpler, and with a lot lower frequency than the things that people smoke now. Cigarettes have thousands of chemicals in them. It's not just tobacco. And nicotine in and of itself isn't so awful. And nicotine actually improves alertness and has some positive benefits in the body. The problem is that you have to smoke it, and it's cocktailed up with all of these chemicals now and purposely designed to get you addicted. And you're addicted to more than just the nicotine. You're also addicted to that whole chemical cocktail. So my recommendation for people, you know, all the smokers, I told them, keep on sharing them blunts. That's the worst thing you could be doing. It's the equivalent of sharing utensils or drinking after somebody. We're in a pandemic. Sharing a blunt, you might as well just, if anybody you're sharing with has COVID, then you've got COVID. There's no way around that. You know, but I do encourage people, cut down on things that could compromise your health. And putting smoke in your lungs is absolutely something that could compromise your health. This might be the time for some of our marijuana users to try alternative products. This is one of the good things about the decriminalization and legalization of marijuana. THC inherently by itself doesn't have a lot of neurotoxicity. You know, there's a whole family of cannabinoids that we actually now understand has what looks to be some medicinal value for different things. So, yeah, this would be a time if you are a smoker, and I don't care what you're smoking, to try to cut that down. You need all your lung capacity if you contract COVID. You need your lungs to be in tip-top shape if you contract COVID.
Well, Dave Dowling has this question for both of you. Do blood pressure meds, diabetic meds, or other such prescribed drugs affect people who have COVID? Dr. Knighton?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Well, Dr. Knighton?
So it does. And there are studies out there that are showing that. So, for example, with individuals that have contracted COVID, their blood sugars have been wacky. They've been reporting higher levels. If you can imagine, too, also individuals, and this is more so when we're talking about, like, let's say, symptomatic. So the increase of, I would say, severity with symptoms that you have from COVID, it also increases those numbers when we're talking about blood pressure, when we're talking about your blood sugars when dealing with diabetes. And naturally, if you think about some of the symptoms that are associated with COVID, it makes sense, right? So think about that straining that it takes to be able to do that cough. So we have individuals that'll report that it feels like glass, like that they're actually coughing and breathing glass. And so imagine that with being able to try to get that cough out and that pressure that's created. With the blood sugars, we've also seen like National Institutes of Health put out some studies that showed this relationship that individuals that had diabetes was more at risk, and not saying more at risk of getting COVID, but more at risk at having bad symptoms from COVID. Whereas also individuals that got COVID that might have been borderline diabetes, it might have pushed them over the edge. Now, there are factors that go into that. For example, the use of the corticosteroids. So sometimes, like if you get COVID, they'll give you these steroids to be able to, so it helps you to breathe. So it helps to like relax the lungs and helps to breathe. And I'm trying to like simplify this the best way that I can. But in reverse of that, like if anyone has ever been on a steroid, they start you out with like, let's say a 4-day regimen. Then they wean you off. They don't just automatically take you off. And the reason they don't automatically take you off is it can have like this rebound effect of your blood sugar elevated drastically. And so there's a lot of studies that are done about that too. So it's kind of like the weighing of, okay, my blood sugar or the ability to breathe in situations where individuals do use those medications. And so, yes, those medications do have a relationship with COVID-19, but like I would tell anyone, like it has always been recommended, do not automatically stop taking your medications when you have COVID. It is important that you seek out a conversation with your healthcare provider or a healthcare provider to let you know what the current state of your health is. We have seen that individuals stop going to the hospital to go seek care or going to their primary to seek care during COVID. And they've also stopped taking their medications because they didn't get out to, like, let's say, go get a prescription renewed. So it is important to not abruptly stop taking your medications because even prior to COVID, we know that these things have rebound effects if you abruptly stop taking them.
Dr. Verholden, this year you have an extra blessing in your household. And everybody is very, very excited to have you both because they're saying, Dave said, thank you for all of this great information, this very informative information, because this is what we need to know. What are you doing? How are you going to have Thanksgiving? Because now you got baby India in the house. What are you doing? Like this
How
is.
am I giving? So we are a small Thanksgiving gathering. We have 4 people who are coming to our Thanksgiving. Those 4 people, I've always agreed to get tested. They come.
When do they get tested? Do they get tested the day before or 2 days before they travel or when they get into town?
Probably 2 days before.
Is this before or after they travel? Is this before or after they travel? I mean, how does that work?
So 2 are driving, and they're driving up the day before. And then my cousin and her friend are only 30 minutes from my house. So she's all.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And I got my whole list together. I said, we've gone over people, so we've talked about it and made agreements. So there's no surprises.
Okay.
Yeah, no surprises. Everybody is well prepared, and everybody knows what the rules are, and everybody has agreed to abide by them. Similarly, I have another friend who is just heels dug in. She is not getting vaccinated, and she's not coming to Thanksgiving.
And that's
okay.
That.
One of the people that are coming is my daughter's best friend and her grandmother. We call her Nana. And so I'm like, you can't put Nana at risk. You can't put baby India at risk, and you can't put Nana at risk. So, I mean, that's just how it is. And I've been around this person, and I love her. She's like a sister to me. But she can't come to the sort of larger family gathering because I don't want to put others in harm's way. And I respect her right to be a no to getting vaccinated.
Now, is she, even if she's COVID negative, she's more of a risk to those people who've been vaccinated? Please explain.
Well, it's less that she's, even if she tests COVID negative, and more, that's the agreement that I made with my people.
Okay.
That we would be vaccinated. And so that's the agreement that we made. And she can't honor that agreement because she has chosen no. And that is okay. But that's the agreement that me and my guests made.
That's your pod.
You know, and that's
Right. That's it.
my pod. And so that's what I tell people. I encourage people, have these conversations. Like, you just got to have the conversations with people. This is not one of those things where you can kind of wing it or figure it out as you go along. You got to have these conversations with people, and you got to have them in advance. It can avoid a lot of upset and give people time enough to contemplate and prepare. I mean, a lot of people, for better or worse, got vaccinated on the heels of these mandates. Some people will get vaccinated if it means the difference is coming to grandma's for Thanksgiving or not. You know, these are conversations to be had. I don't think there's any one right way to do it, but I think what would be problematic is to not be having the conversations at all. I think that's a missed opportunity. I think people should be having these conversations.
Well, I think we're missing it. That's why we want to have it now. Dr. Knighton, I've got about a minute and a half before we go. What do you want people to know? We're 2 weeks out from the holiday. What should people be doing now?
So I think we touched upon it a little bit, but I think understanding the incubation period of COVID is important. And what do I mean by that? That's the time from exposure to development of symptoms. We know that an individual, like it's estimated, by scientists, that people who get infected with COVID can spread it to others 2 to 3 days before symptoms start. So if that is the case, I just want to keep people to keep in mind that doing, let's say like appointed visit testing, or even let's say like 3 to 4 days before, should be able to provide enough. I would say it would lower the risk. It's not going to necessarily prevent you from getting it, okay? But it does mean that at least you'll have a better gauge in regards to if somebody tests positive or not. The other piece of it is, and I'm not going to get too much into the practical stuff, but this is more so of just thinking out, not just necessarily in public, but even at your home. We never think about tissue, okay? So the tissue that's used to blow somebody's nose, or the tissue that's used to use the bathroom as well, and the person before you that may end up coming in contact with that tissue. I know that this sounds crazy, but I do recommend to individuals to make sure that they have a tissue box present for someone that may need to blow their nose, opposed to the person that's going to grab the tissue, because not everybody grabs the tissue the same. So if you have somebody that's grabbing a tissue with snot on it, and you the next person that ends up grabbing that tissue too, you're going to likely end up blowing your nose with their germs. And so just consciously think about that to emphasize tissue box used for one of those very reasons. That's the same thing for tears and stuff like that too. It's just because that is something that's not often thought about. But I know we've all been to a restroom, even my kids. I know that this might be a little bit graphic,
10 seconds.
But I see them sometimes they will roll the roll directly off, and it would be going directly to the wipe opposed to tearing it off. So just think about those individuals that do things like that when you are using the restroom.
That's why we have Dr. Shanita Knighton and Dr. Deborah Holden with us on the Santita Jackson Show. Let's talk about Ahmaud Arbery, Kyle Rittenhouse. Will Kyle Rittenhouse get off? Will the murderers of Ahmaud Arbery, will they get off? Might happen. Back in just a minute.
Let's change the world.
Okay, Dr. Deb, people want to see this picture of this baby now. Come on. Deborah?
Okay. I'm going to put it up. It was a funny, though, because it was her on Zoom with me, but I had the eyebrow and the lipstick filter on.
I looked at her, I said, look at those little pink lips.
And when I helped her up, Zoom put the eyebrows and the lipstick on her.
She's a living doll. She's a living doll. What a blessing. I mean, to have all those generations, for you all to be together at this time, it's just, I can't say it enough. It's such a blessing. It's such a blessing. When my grandmother,
Like, she looks like me. I love it.
She looks just like you. She looks just like you.
Yeah.
And she's going to carry you right into this century. And it's amazing. I mean, and don't, please embrace this moment. I know you are, but when my grandmothers died within 2 years of each other. And when I looked at my last grandmother who passed, my grandmother Gertrude, I said, wow, now she's my ancestor.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's my responsibility to tell my nieces and nephews about their great grandmother. And, honestly, that choked me up. Because I was very clear when she left, I said, she has left the building. Because she struggled to leave. She didn't want to go. I think she was very fearful, quite frankly. But when she finally released, I said, I knew that she was going, which is why I stayed with my mother for 4 months. Because I said, my grandmother's getting out of here. I don't, and with my father flying in and out of town and my brothers, I said, I don't want my mother, I don't want this to happen while somebody's in the air, But it came to me. I said, I have known my great grandmother. I've known both of my grandmothers. I've known one grandfather. And they're all ancestors now. I mean, now they're ancestors. And girl, write everything down. Tell her, do videos, do everything you can so that she can know who you are and know your story. That is so important. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It is pretty cool to think too, because my mom was a really great grandma. She was very close with my children, and they loved their Nana. They called her Nana.
Mm.
And it's so funny. I was talking to my daughter, and I said, it's so sad. I said, India's never going to meet my mom. She's never going to meet my dad. And my daughter, Jordan, looked at me. She said, but Mom, she's got you. She's
got you, and she's got the stories.
You're her grandma.
You can make them live to her by sharing the stories.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I never met my great-grandmother's sister, Pearl, but she talked about her so much. I know her.
Yeah.
It's like, I know her.
Yeah.
And she died very, very, very young, like 50, 60 years before I was born. So, that's how you make people live. You tell the stories. It's when you stop calling their names that people fade from memory. But you know what? I've got Chaparral on here, and I've got Attorney Hoffler. Now, Chaparral is on here because Dr. Furholden and Dr. Knighton, Chaparral is one of the greatest cooks I know, one of the greatest chefs I know. In fact, she does a lot of food for us during the holidays. And so she is doing in fact, she can ship out of town. So, I mean, my smothered pork chops for my birthday 2 years ago, I'm still waiting for another order. Fabulous. Oh my gosh. I mean, the greens, the string beans, but her cakes, everything is just delicious. And I think a lot of people, that's right, Paula, stories are everything. A lot of you, the Morning Stars, or Nina drove in from oh my goodness, one of the far suburbs to pick up her order from Chaparral last year. So Chaparral is on. She's going to let everybody know how they can order their Thanksgiving and Christmas victuals. So you walk in, Sister Pearl, you can say hello to Dr. Knighton and to Dr. Furholden and Attorney C.K. Hoffler.
Good morning, ladies. A joy to be on with you guys. I love listening to you guys every morning. It really has put forth a lot of knowledge for all of us out here in the community.
It really does mean a lot, doesn't it, Chaparral?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Because no one's giving us information.
Both Dr. Furholden and Dr. Knighton daily. And then I always tell them, y'all don't know CK. Y'all better get to know her.
Oh, wait a minute. And she needs to know you, CK, because this girl stays in Facebook jail because she keeps cursing everybody out on Facebook. So I think she needs your help.
I got about 8 more hours and I'll be back.
So I'll be able to get up on another one of my live streams, right? Chaparral, hello?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. just so that you all know. She helped me to get up, she and Dr. Reeves. And Dr. Reeves said, "Oh, we can't go there because she's in Facebook jail." I was like, "Really?" So every time she's in Facebook jail, I'm cut off. Oh, don't let me get started. Chappelle just doesn't stop. D. Ray, she does ship nationwide. I've got about 30 seconds before I come up. Chappelle.
1 minute.
Let me put this on here. Chappelle.
Yes, we do ship.
Put that in
shipping is
there.
extra, but we do ship anywhere in the United States.
Okay. Okay, now I can hear that.
Oh,
It's
that was
okay.
Dr. Knighton. her and her creaky doors and her ice.
30 seconds.
Oh my gosh.
That door was funny. I will tell you that. Oh my God.
I was like, what is that?
It sounded like
Oh
like,
my
I need to put
gosh.
some that was my bathroom door. I was like, I need some WD-40.
Yes,
10
you do,
seconds.
girl. No, honey, you just need some grease. Oh my gosh.
Man, I said, dang, it sounded like I was in a scary movie or something.
it did. Telling you, that's the perfect one right there.
Here we go.
can change the world. We can change the world. Change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Wednesday, so you know what it is. It's live legal Q&A with CK. We're going to be talking about the Ahmaud Arbery and the Kyle Rittenhouse cases. The Kyle Rittenhouse case is about halfway over. Will he get off? He just might, everybody. Can't wait to talk with her about it. And I know you've got a lot of questions, so make sure you call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278, WCPT. Paula is telling Dr. Deborah Verholden that her door is haunted. Oh, I love it. WCPT is my home, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. And of course, you can meet my morning stars over on my YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show channel. Please like and subscribe. Meet us at the Santita Jackson Show channel or my Facebook page, the Santita Jackson and Friends page. So, hey, let's get it going, everybody, on the Santita Jackson Show. And you can text me at that number too, 773-763-9278. Let's get to some of these headlines so we can get to legal Q&A with CK. But you know what? I've got Chappelle Wells, Celebrations by Us. She does so many things well. She's one of the greatest cooks in the world. And I have to tell you, she does a lot of holiday cooking, I know, for my family, because she is just that good and we are just that particular. Chappelle, Celebrations by Us, what's going on?
Yes, Santita, thank you so much for allowing us on again this morning. I just wanted to say that we are still taking orders for Thanksgiving. We'll be taking orders until the 19th of the month, and we will be handling all of your holiday needs, which includes our turkey and dressing, ham, chicken, also our famous sweets, our banana pudding, our caramel cakes, our German chocolate cakes, as well as also our peach cobbler. So whatever your needs are for holiday season, please give us a call at 708-526-4546, 708-526-4546, or reach out to us on the World Wide Web at celebrationsbyus.org. Thank you, Santita.
What's that number again?
708-526-4546.
All right, everybody, go to celebrationsbyus.org, celebrationsbyus.org. You got to beat Nina there, because Nina beat everybody there. What was it, the year before last year, Pearl? She got there.
Yes, ma'am. She got her famous caramel cake.
That's right. And she does ship nationwide, everybody, so go on and get those orders in. I'm getting mine in. Hello. I'm not kidding. I'm very serious. Chicago, we're going to have a high of 57 degrees, mostly cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, a high of 52 degrees. Excuse me. Let's not make it any colder than it is. 52 degrees and rain. The Dow closed down 112 points. The NASDAQ closed down 95 points. The S&P 500 closed down 16 points yesterday. In the NBA tonight, the Timberwolves will be with the Warriors tonight out west, and the Mavericks will be here in Chicago playing the Bulls. In the In hockey, well, guess what? Chicago, they were triumphant over the Penguins, and the Wild will be playing the Coyotes tonight. This is Earth Day, everybody. It's a time to raise awareness for this planet over which we have stewardship, everybody. We've got environmental issues. We've got to engage in conservation education. Earth Day, everybody. Happy Earth Day. Happy Earth Day. Let's bless the earth as it has blessed us. Let's take care of it, everybody. New subpoenas continue to flow from the committee investigating the January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. The panel announced 10 more subpoenas yesterday, following 6 on Monday. And we are seeing that Aaron Rodgers and the Packers will be fined by the NFL because of their quarterback's misleading statements about his vaccination status. Indeed, he said that he was immunized, but he's actually not been vaccinated for their portion. The corporate media did not follow up on that. And now the Green Bay Packers have a $300,000 fine, and Aaron Rodgers and his teammate, wide receiver Alan Lazard, were fined $14,650 each for violating the protocols for unvaccinated players. Moderna took NIH money and help for its COVID vaccine, but now it wants to leave the government scientists off of the lucrative patent. Moderna is disputing some claims by the NIH, National Institute of Health, that it was behind the invention of the company's mRNA coronavirus vaccine, raising the stakes in the debate over the government's ability to exert influence over the availability and price of the vaccine in the future. At the core of the dispute is the contribution of NIH-funded scientists who worked closely with Moderna at the dawn of the pandemic. It is important for us to note that this young female scientist, this young African-American scientist, Kazmikia Corbett, was at the center of the development of that vaccine. Hope that she and her fellow colleagues get the appropriate credit. This legal Q&A with CK, so let's get right to it, everybody. We have got a lot to talk about today. Everybody wants to talk about these trials. So call me at 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. CK, it seems that the Kyle Rittenhouse trial is speeding by. Indeed. His side, they have rested their case. Have they made their case? And why was one of the charges against him dropped, namely the curfew charge? He was 17 years of age. Is there not a curfew for minors?
Good morning, Santita.
Yes.
Yeah, the Kyle Rittenhouse case has more twists and turns than a little, more unusual twists and turns than a little. To answer your question directly, it makes no sense to me that the curfew charge was dropped. But remember, in trials, when you've got a bunch of charges, the prosecutors in this case, and the prosecutors have rested their case. The defense is starting their case. And so the question for them is, was there enough evidence? Do they have a chance of prevailing on certain counts? Oftentimes you drop counts that you don't think you have a chance of prevailing on, and if there's some legal complications, and sometimes you look at the rulings of the judge. So they must have made a determination that they didn't have sufficient evidence, or they wanted to focus in and hone in on the other charges against them. Made no sense to me, but that is the position that they've taken. So today what we're going to see is the defense of Kyle Rittenhouse. And the open question is, will they put him on the stand? Legal pundits from all over the world are taking bets on this. I think it's always a risk when you put the defendant on the stand. But when you have a little cherub angel that looks that they've cleaned up so nicely, like Kyle Rittenhouse, I think they really are considering putting him on the stand. And he's now 18, so he may have a say on that. It would be very, very risky because he could be cross-examined on some of his other activities that could be relevant to the shooting. Certainly, the reason why they would consider having him on the stand is because they may want the jury to hear from his own lips, this little young boy, because teenagers do appear to be vulnerable. Their minds are fully developed. People do give sometimes a pass to young people because of the stage of their brain development. And he does look rather innocent and sad and pitiful and all of those things. And a lot of times that will pull on the heartstrings of jurors. So there's a lot of emotional reason, if you will, for him to be on the stand. But I think it's a legal, I think it would be, playing with fire. Because one, he is young. Two, he is silly. Three, he has judgment issues. And 4, he would open the door potentially from his testimony to other things that I think the defense does not want the prosecution to go into.
Call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763. WCPT, what are your thoughts about this case? I want to know what your thinking is. I mean, where are we in this case? It just seems to me that this is happening very, very fast, CK. It seems like the jury was impaneled very quickly, and it seems like this trial is moving quickly. Am I right or am I wrong?
You're absolutely right.
Okay.
You're absolutely right. It took one day to pick a jury.
Whoa. Stop. It took what?
One day. One business day. Not 24 hours, but basically 7 hours to pick a jury. And juxtapose that to the 3 weeks that it took to pick a jury in the McMichael and the Bryan trial for the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. In Kyle Rittenhouse case, he killed 2 people and injured a third. In the McMichael Bryan case, they murdered, killed 1 person. So the issues in both cases are equally as complex, yet it took 1 day in Kenosha, Wisconsin, to pick a jury in the Kyle Rittenhouse case. That speaks volumes. I expected that it would take at least 2 weeks to pick a jury. But if we think about what they were looking for in jurors and what they were expecting, there was not the same level of probing questions that we saw in the case surrounding the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. Remember, Ahmaud Arbery is not on trial. His murder is, and those who killed him are. But the types of questions that the jurors had to sustain and endure in the McMichael and Bryan trials were really, really, really very probing, and many of them centered around race, about Black Lives Matter, protests, things of that nature. Now, while the protesting that Kyle Rittenhouse was there to intervene in, interfere in, protect property when he wasn't being asked to protect property, the reason why he was there was surrounding the shooting of a Black man, Jacob Blake, by a white police officer. That's completely lost in the narrative because the defendant is white, and the victims, who they're not allowed to call victims, the 2 men that died and the 1 person who was injured, they're white as well. So it's very, very interesting when we talk about this case, the Kyle Rittenhouse case, and juxtapose it and analyze it in the context of what's happening in the case surrounding the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. Very interesting, and a very interesting commentary on the state of race relations in the U.S. and people's minds, what they're thinking, what jurors are thinking. And it raises the importance for Black and brown people to always present for jury duty, because these are huge issues that are being decided in these trials that impact our community. And if we are not there, and by the way, we are not there in either one of these cases. We don't have a real presence, a strong presence, a determining presence in either one of those cases. And when that happens, then we will see outcomes that sometimes don't make us feel good and make us feel like, once again, justice was not served. Now, in either case, there's not been, the jury hasn't spoken in either case, so we don't know what the outcome will be. Mm-hmm. But going in on both cases, there's bias everywhere, Santita. Awful bias.
Because they already lost a juror, right?
Yes. A juror who was, in the Kyle Rittenhouse case, who was making a joke about Jacob Blake.
You know, about how many times he'd been shot. Basically, they just ran out of bullets. He thought it was funny. Unbelievable, but also the judge had to pull aside, what is it, the defense? Because they were behaving disrespectfully toward him? What is going on here? I mean, this guy turned his back on the judge in court. How do you do that?
Well, and you know, there are a lot of attorneys that are very disrespectful toward judges. I am not one of them. I'm not one of them. You know, but I will tell you, if you disagree with a judge, which, by the way, that's how law is made. You know, judges make decisions every day, and if you disagree, there's a process. You can prepare the case for appeal. You make your objections for the record, but you must always be respectful of the court, even when you disagree. I disagree vehemently with the judges in both cases. With the judge in the Kyle Rittenhouse case, the fact that the protesters or the victims, the people who were shot and killed by Kyle Rittenhouse and the gentleman that was injured are to be called, protesters and looters. That I vehemently disagree with that, because that is a negative connotation. Looter is a negative connotation. And so because he was saying being called a victim is a positive connotation. And you're not a victim, so you're primitive. All of that stuff, I think what goes for the goose goes for the gander. I vehemently disagree with that characterization. I vehemently disagree with some of the rulings in the case. I disagree with the ruling when a judge in the Ahmaud Arbery case makes a statement. I feel that there's some intentional discrimination. I'm paraphrasing, but he did say intentional discrimination circulating in this courtroom surrounding the jury selection process. But we're going to go forward with this trial because the law supports it. That rubs me, as a practitioner of almost 35 years, it rubs me the wrong way. Mm-hmm. It makes me feel some kind of way. I would be objecting, there's a strong term, I would be objecting vehemently in court, but I would be respectful of the judge. You can object, you make your record, but you respect the court because it is that judge's courtroom. But you can object the way, and you preserve your objections for the appeal. But when you start turning your back and all that kind of stuff on the judge, a judge can hold you in contempt.
But why didn't he? He pulled him aside and read him the riot act. Why didn't he do that?
Probably, maybe another time if it happens, he probably will. And different judges have different ways of running their courtrooms. I know some judges that in a hot second would have held him in contempt and not thought twice about it. And dares anyone else to do that. So all judges are different in the way that they run their courtrooms, but the thing that is true as a practitioner is you've got to respect the judge's courtroom. Disagree with their ruling? Yes. There's nothing wrong with that, but you have to respect their courtroom. And so I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see how things play out in the Kyle Rittenhouse case. We need to look at this case. We need to learn from this case. And there are going to be many lessons that many of us will take because there's not really any Black people involved in the Kyle Rittenhouse case. Not one.
Well, you know what? I mean, I can understand, in Wisconsin, not having a lot of Black people on the jury. I want to make sure that there are fair people on the jury. I am concerned that a lawyer would be so disrespectful of the court. I mean, whether you agree with the court or not, I think you have to be respectful of the office. I mean, that's why I still call President Trump. I respect the office, even as I disagree vehemently with his positions. And that's an honorific that you give to all people who've held public office. The mayor, once they get out, that is still the mayor, the state representative, the state senator. That's how it's done. And I will go with that. That having been said, I'm wondering what, let me go to some of these callers because they have a lot of questions for you. And I mean, it's a lot. I mean, and our lines are full, but continue to call, everybody. Continue to call. Let's go to Thurgood from Chicago. Thurgood, what's on your mind?
Good morning. I'm a long-time listener, faithful listener, but I had to pick up my phone and offer my 2 cents here. But my this Travis, you got an excellent counselor here. She's taken a good deal of my thunder, but I'll add my 2 cents nonetheless. Again, I couldn't agree more. The judge's decision in motions in limine, that's before a trial, there's a lot of different procedural matters, and in this instance, the judge's granting motions in limine from the defense that they could refer to the protesters as looters, and conversely, and this is unprecedented in my umpteen years of practice, that the 2 men that are dead, shot dead in a murder trial, cannot be referred to as victims, not even alleged victims.
Well, have you ever heard of anything like that? So you're a lawyer.
It's bizarre. No, ma'am. Me and Abraham Lincoln were in the same law school class.
Look, I'm not mad at him, but
Now that's funny. I'm not mad at you. That's funny.
But you know what's so crazy?
I mean, just to give you perspective, I mean, I've never heard of such a thing. Went to a decent law school. I've never heard of such a thing, and I've spent probably far more of my career in civil rather than criminal courtrooms. But that's ridiculous. It would be the alleged victims. I mean, that's a running joke in any courtroom. The alleged victim. You cannot refer to the decedent and the man that was shot as a victim. Now, the issue is whether or not this young man, in fact, has, in the nature of a affirmative defense, I fear for my life. And thus, in mind you, the standard is the use of reasonable force in response to a threat. I felt threatened, so I used my AK-47 and I shot a guy multiple times as he's leaving from me. I think that's the biggest problem with the defense case. That's a key fact, that there is this exchange that occurs between the defendant and the victim, and he shoots one of the victims, I believe, multiple times as he's walking away. So that's going to be a tough pail of water to carry. And my other observation was the decision, and counsel had to help me on this. I just learned on the show this morning that the curfew charge is dropped somehow to minimize. I know it was dropped or dismissed. I don't know if that came after a motion for directed finding or whatever, but that's bizarre. He's underage. He's out there. And the other issue that somehow we're minimizing is a sad indictment on our society. He's out there, this teenager's out there with AK-47. We talk about violence in our society, violence in the city of Seattle. Is that the new normal? An underage teenager walking around the streets with an AK-47, supposedly for unsolicited keeping the peace. It's a disturbing season and a disturbing indictment on our society.
Well, everything is disturbing to me about this. And CK, I literally have under a minute for you to address counsel. Here we go.
Well, first of all, I was laughing about the Abraham Lincoln and you being in Muslim class, but I have to agree with you. As I said, I don't understand the dropping of the curfew charge, and that being dismissed. But the judge did dismiss it, and there's probably a lot that we don't hear and we don't know about. It didn't make a lot of sense to me because again, they rested their case. The prosecutors rested their case. The defense argued that they hadn't provided any evidence that a curfew had been in place, and the judge agreed. So I don't know if there wasn't any evidence. I thought there was, how about a recitation of the law? How about maybe there was no evidence that was laid? Did they just forget about that? And if they didn't lay the evidence,
possible explanation that they forgot about it is that during the court trial in chief, they did not put. In my mind, certainly from the testimony of the people that engaged him, this is Kyle Rittenhouse, or he lives at this address, he's this age, and I guess there was no. And the only way that case wouldn't get to the jury is that nobody referenced the fact that there is a curfew statute. I don't know, but it's bizarre.
You know what? I'm gonna go. Stay right there, sir. Stay right there because we're up against this hard break. But we're going to continue to talk about this. Call us at 773-763-9278. Counsel, stay right with us because we're going to talk just a little bit on the break on the Santita Jackson Show.
All right.
Sir, I caught that out the corner of my ear. And so then I had to go digging. I said, wait a minute. He was 17. I was like, are you for real?
But you know, Santita, in every case, you got to lay the evidence. They could have done something as simple as, and again, I'm not licensed in Wisconsin, but typically, the rules of civil procedure are pretty much the same in most jurisdictions. And there's some, vocal rules that you have to, abide by. But judicial notice of statutes, of laws,
absolutely,
very common. All they had to do was ask the court to take judicial notice of a Wisconsin statute or a Kenosha statute. It's not a lot. It doesn't take a whole lot. They must have flat out forgot about it or something. Or maybe I think, when I see attorneys not focusing on something, for some reason they feel that maybe their case isn't as strong on that and they don't focus on it. I don't know why, because based on what I understood to be the case, There was a curfew in place. The court can take judicial notice, but you've got to present the evidence before. You don't present it when you're after, and when you're responding to a motion for directed verdict on a claim and on an issue. It's got to be in the record. And somehow they didn't put it in the record. By the way, that could have been stipulated to. And the trial memorandum before stipulates to the fact that there was a curfew, unless there's some legal reason that we are not aware of, because there was frankly no response that we could hear that complicated that.
Then you know what, CK, don't talk to me ever again about these black children who are just out here wandering, okay? And I want to know why his mother's not in this case. Never heard of anything so crazy in my life. And it's not just crazy, it's just privilege.
And that supposedly she drove him up there and the thing, right? I mean, how did she drove him up there, the kid with the AK-47.
Right, and knew why he was going. And by the way, she's sitting in the front row of the courtroom. So, all of these things to me, Santita, are distressing, bizarre, and sad, and a very strong commentary, like I said, on where we are in this country as it relates to some of these issues. We have to be very, very careful about the precedent that they've
It doesn't make me sad. I'm glad, and I want to tell you why. Because all this corruption that we have known has now been laid bare. Mic drop on that. I'm happy. Ooh, I'm happy.
I think what counsel is pointing to is that if he walked under these facts, that is, I understand you're being glad that he's going to trial.
I'm being facetious.
And the police abuse. But what counsel is referring to is that, this is, if he goes free, this is a deeply dangerous precedent.
It is, but you know what?
And there's probably similar cases out there.
I will say this as someone who is not a lawyer. This system has been deeply flawed and has been deeply dangerous for the most vulnerable since the beginning. So expose it.
1 minute.
Expose it. Expose it. We need to stop playing with this. Stop playing with this. This boy's mama drove him to shoot people, to keep the peace. A 17-year-old. What kind of mother are you? No one's examining her and her pathologies. And the fact that he came from a home that there were a lot of domestic disturbances. No one's talking about that. But whenever you have black people up there, you have to ream us and make us the walking embodiment of pathologies. I am sick of that. But I don't want to see any child in pain, white, black, brown, yellow, or red, or any person. But this is crazy. This is absolutely insane. Counselor, we're going to have to let you go. What's your name? Or if you don't have to say it if you don't want to.
My moniker is Thurgood. I'm one of your biggest fans. My name is Luke Townsend.
Counselor,
10 seconds.
It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance.
Blessings upon both of you. I listen faithfully.
You've blessed me. Thank you. You got to
you.
stay with us. So, Stina, you stay right here. Stay here for a second. Stay here.
Change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am free.
Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Wednesday, November 10th, 2021. You know what time it is. It's CK time. Legal Q&A with CK. We got Thurgood, our counselor, who said he was going to stick around with us for a little while, CK, because as D. Ray said, D. Ray Jones says, Attorney Hoffler has a super duper rooper crunk today. Her gas tank flaming show, Santita J. Boom. Love it. Come on, I had the mic drop on that. Let me go to some of these callers because people want to know what's going on, honey. And you got co-counsel in here today, Thurgood. Let me go to Andre from Chicago. Andre, what's on your mind?
Good morning to you, lady Santita and the guest.
Thank you
for taking my call. I just want to say that the judge was wrong with that because finding evidence for curfew is very simple. All you got to do is find out the statute that stated what the curfew law is and see if he violated. So somebody could have came up with that evidence. Second of all, I haven't heard anyone mention anything about juvenile delinquency. Somebody contributed to the delinquency of a minor. He was out there. He couldn't do all of this by himself from getting a gun and ammunition as well. And I want to know, this my question is this, didn't he have a responsibility after you shoot somebody? Don't you have an obligation to call the police, tell the police, and report it? He didn't do that. And to me, that's an admission of guilt. When you leave the scene, just like in automobile and everything else, that's an admission of guilt when you don't notify that he walked past police with his hands
Wait a minute,
up,
Andre.
he never got done.
Andre, don't leave yet. Stay right there. What do you make of the fact that he tried to surrender to the police, and the police and people were shouting, that guy, were pointing at him. He shot somebody. He just shot 2 people. 3. It's him. And the policeman waved him off. He said, because I heard gunfire and I wanted to hear where else it was coming from. Now, mind you, he had his machine gun in front of him. He was holding it. What do you make of that, Andre?
Well, I think that there's all type of scenarios, but I'm not defending anybody in that case. But if the police is riding around in these armored trucks, I don't know how accurate their hearing might have been, or if they could get a grasp on the situation. I really don't know. But even if that's the case, he still should have stopped and ran toward the police with his hands up and told them, "Hey, I shot somebody." He still had a obligation to do that, and obviously he had his hands up. But nobody is a mind reader. You know, you walk with your hands up, that couldn't signify anything. But the other thing is that last witness that was on the stand, I think that created a problem because from what I've seen, the little part I watched, he did not have any legal representation, because if he had representation, nobody would have let him get up there and say that he failed and his gun was pointing toward Carl Rittenhouse. He didn't have a lawyer. And that's in the, I'm talking about the last witness that had them 2 hoops and both was in his ears. He never had any legal representation because listen to how he answered these questions. You could tell that he made himself look bad, and he contributed to the defense with his comments.
CK, before I go to the callers, what do you make of what Andre's breaking it down?
Well, Andre is breaking it down, and this is what I say. Number one, the police gave him some water, patted him on the back, and told him to go on his merry way. So what the police didn't do is for me something also to be examined and looked at, but that's not the main focus of the case because he shot and killed 2 people and injured a 3rd. But it is just absolutely inexcusable that the police did not focus on this young man who was walking, because they saw him before he shot them with an AK-47. And he looks like he's about 14 and a half going on 15. That's number one. Number two, many of the witnesses that testified, or at least 2 of the witnesses that testified, did cut a deal for their actions. Like the first witness that the prosecution put up was Kyle Rittenhouse's best friend, the friend that bought the AK-47, that bought the weapon for him. And he testified, but he had a deal with the state, with the prosecution. And that came out, of course, on cross-examination. Nonetheless, he testified, and I thought actually he helped the defense in some respects. But he did give us some idea as to the state of mind of Kyle Rittenhouse, allegedly. And so there are people that testify every day that may not have legal counsel, but may have cut a deal with the state. And a lot of times in criminal trials, usually it does come out, depending upon the testimony that they give. In this case, I think the testimony was kind of helpful to Rittenhouse. I think it was a wash, to be very frank. But I think the point that you're making is an excellent point, that there were so many issues, and with what I'm saying, surrounding this case, the mother's role, the mother's role, the friend's role, Kyle's role, all of these things are being seen, are being heard, other people are speaking to it. And, the police officers that testified, they had law enforcement testify. A law enforcement officer could have confirmed the curfew. The whole issue of the curfew is so ridiculous because as a practitioner, I know that you can ask a court to take judicial notice of certain laws. If it was not a law on the books, if there's a practice that was put in place that day, you have law enforcement that was aware of that, and law enforcement testified. You bring up a witness that can testify. You have to lay some evidence in the record. And evidently, there was not evidence in the record on the curfew issue. So many problems, but I think that the prosecution is relying on the video and believes that the video presentation speaks a million words and is going to save the day. Well, that video is not like the video in the case of George Floyd's murder, because the video of George Floyd's murder was clear, and you saw Derek Chauvin with his knee on his neck for 9 minutes and 49 seconds. what you see in these videos is pandemonium. You see a lot of chaos. And that, I think, in some respects can help Kyle Rittenhouse because they're painting a picture where there was so much chaos, he was defending himself. But what everyone is forgetting is he injected himself in this. A 17-year-old boy who was not legal. Nobody was going to call a 17-year-old boy from a different state to come protect their property. That's ludicrous. He injected himself. His mother was an accomplice in injecting this young man in that, putting him in that place. His friend who bought the AK-47 was an accomplice, and of course he's been charged as well. So I think we don't need to lose sight of that. He injected himself, just like the McMichaels, and the Bryan injected themselves when they chased down Ahmaud Arbery like a rabid dog. They injected themselves in that, so they should not be able to avail themselves of the defense of self-defense when they injected and started this in motion, trapped him with their trucks, hit him, beat him, all the stuff that they did. And then they're going to say, when he's defending himself, oh, we were afraid for our lives, so we just had to shoot to kill him. That's a ludicrous, in my humble impression, state of affairs if they are allowed to walk. So we got to look at these cases very.
Am I done, or can I make another comment?
Okay, very quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, as far as Ahmaud Arbery goes in this case here, I think it was wrong to want to bring up some sort of history of Ahmaud Arbery's drug use without bringing out the history of the man that shot him, about the father that shot him. Because at that man's age, I'm pretty sure he had some sort of drugs or something in his system as well. So if they allow Ahmaud Arbery's drug history to be presented, then this man's drug history should be allowed to be presented as well.
Absolutely. I mean, CK, come on. This is... Well, the fact that we're calling this the Ahmaud Arbery case is just, when it's the McMichaels and Mr. Bryan who are on trial, is just, come on.
Right. I don't call it the Ahmaud Arbery case, but just like people were calling it the George Floyd case, I don't call it that. I think the case surrounding the murder of Ahmaud Arbery, but it's the McMichael and the Bryan case. But Ahmaud Arbery, because they are alleging self-defense, in some respects, the victims are always, especially if they're black, are always on trial in these kinds of cases, unfortunately. And so it is unfair. There were, prior to trial, there were motions that were filed to preclude the defense from bringing in Ahmaud Arbery's psychological history and all that kind of stuff. And they prevailed in those motions. The judge did grant them. But if the door is opened when you're in trial, you open the door to some evidence, then the other side is entitled to cross-examine. And then whatever motion in limine could be revisited. It just depends on how the evidence is laid. So if the judge does reverse that, that will be something that could be very, very, I think, damaging for the prosecution's case in the Ahmaud Arbery trial. But the judge did, and pretrial rulings did rule that some of that information was not coming in.
Then let me go to Shapiro.
Psychological profile.
Well, Shapiro, thank you, sweetie. Thank you so much for calling in, my sweet. Let me go to Shapiro, who has called back in. She wants to weigh in with you, CK.
Yes, CK. I wanted to ask you about the Ahmaud Arbery case because of the fact that I see that they are doing a lot of attorney sidebars in regards to like the Burton rule. I think that's what it's called. And they're injecting that back in. And I was wondering, why didn't they do that for the actual jury that was selected as opposed to these other defense that they're doing right now?
Well, I don't know if these things were raised before. I believe they were raised before. And that's the thing about a trial. Depending upon how the evidence comes in, a lot of times new information does cause there to be sidebars and you revisit questions that the judge has already ruled on. That's not so unusual. I've had that happen many times where the judge rules on something either in limine or in trial, and then another issue comes up and the judge may be required to change the ruling or reverse the ruling because the evidence or the argument is requires him to reconsider or her to reconsider the ruling. That is not really so unusual. The sidebars are designed to minimize the likelihood of there being appealable issues that would go up on appeal and get some traction. So what you do is you have to object to preserve the record. You object to preserve the record, the judge rules on those objections, and then you continue on. And a lot of times you do it in sidebar because you don't want to do it in open court. You don't want the jury to hear all that. And the judge, and they probably have an understanding that they have to take up certain objections in sidebar.
Did that help you, Chaparral?
It does. And then about Rittenhouse, I definitely think that he is going to get off because, like I said before, I think that the case has been not made by the prosecution. I think that all the witnesses have supported Rittenhouse, and they have already made a statement for him to actually be acquitted. And so I'm not going to be surprised when he's acquitted. I'm not going to be surprised at all. But I think that even Black will actually do more time than Rittenhouse and his mother, who should be charged for this crime of killing these two people. And then, like, they were trying to paint the victims as, aggressors and everything like that, but they haven't really brought out the fact that he was toting that gun and he was intimidating the audience with that gun, which is why Rosenbaum tried to grab it from him because he was threatening people with the gun. And you hear the people in the audience saying that, but they haven't made that case to the jury properly so that way the jury knows this is why Rosenbaum was going after him to actually grab the gun, to take it away from him because they knew that he was a young kid with an AK-47 that he shouldn't have. And then you have also the other guy, after he shot Rosenbaum, he hits him with the thing because he just saw him kill somebody else. And so these things are not coming across as them trying to do our Rittenhouse coming out as self-defense. And I don't know if that's because the way the prosecution is putting on the case, but something is not going right with this case at all.
Well, she makes the point about Rosenbaum, one of the gentlemen who was killed, who struggled with bipolar disorder, CK, and he was not even there to protest. I mean, he had just recently been released from a mental health facility. He was not there for that reason. He was just out. So, I mean, he did not kill a looter or a rioter, as if you have the right to do that. He killed someone who was just there. I mean, his fiance is wondering, she said he was the nicest guy, made you laugh all the time. Yeah, he had his issues, but he was a good guy, and he was not there for that. I mean, CK, it's as if they are intentionally tracking him toward an acquittal.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Just think about it. We're not there to see every nook and cranny of the evidence, and if we sense that, it's probably even more intensified.
Well, given your experience, what are you seeing? Because you're commentating on this on Court TV every week. What are you seeing?
What I'm seeing is I think the prosecution has a lot of there have been some holes in the evidence that's been presented in the Kyle Rittenhouse case. I think that that the way that the evidence is being laid, the defense has, in my impression, the upper hand going into the defense. So the prosecution has rested its case. So basically, the defense will probably put on a very short defense, maybe a day and a half, and they will hand it to a jury. And unfortunately, unless something dramatic changes, I believe that he will be acquitted.
Wow. Let me go to Anita from North Carolina. Anita, what's on your mind?
Good morning to everyone.
Good morning.
Tamir Rice. Good morning. Tamir Rice had a play gun, and he's dead. Who shot him? But they couldn't see the difference between the guns, the size, and it's just all wrong. And the mother, they probably took the curfew away to stop them charging the mom for accessory to a murder, 3 murders or 2 murders, and criminal intention to kill someone else. So I'm assuming that's why the curfew law was taken out
to absolve the mother of responsibility, to take the mother out of it.
Tamir Rice, Yeah, but Tamir Rice, I mean, you know, he was out doing a regular time, and he did with a play gun. And Ahmaud Arbery, he should have had a Social Security check in the Section 8. That's what the people in Chapel Hill get when, you know, there's a whole bunch of drug people in Chapel Hill, the University of North Carolina. They have many Section 8s and many Social Security checks given out for drug reasons. So he should have been given that instead of let out on the street if they want to use that as an excuse. And let's remember that President Obama was stopped. They created a law to stop him from appointing a Supreme Court justice. They created a law that Trump later violated completely. Okay, so they do what they want to do. The law is for black people to follow and white people never to follow. So that cannot be a law if everybody's paying taxes that white don't have to obey, but black do, and then we pay taxes for everyone to obey.
Anita has spoken. Let me roll through some more of these calls. Love you, Anita, calling from North Carolina. Jewel from New York. What's on your mind, Jewel? Hey, Jewel.
Thank God that I'm alive. You know, and
Amen.
let me tell you something. I'm a victim survivor. I'm a victim survivor, but I want to talk with you about that.
Okay.
This case goes that you discussed this morning. When they said that they were going to be discussing them as victims, I was thinking.
Ooh, Jewel, we have a poor connection. Let's put Jewel on hold. Let's try and steady your connection. Let's go to Dave from Chicago. Jewel, we're going to come right back to you. Dave, what's on your mind?
Hi.
Hey.
Hello. You know, it doesn't matter if there were looters. It doesn't matter if there were people destroying property. He's still a minor walking around with a gun, an AK-47, and that's an accident waiting to happen. And his mother is contributing to the delinquency of a minor. And there's just so many things about this thing that are insane. I mean, he's the hero and poster boy of every gun-wielding Yahoo out there. And there's a lot of people that would probably like to see him get off, but he shouldn't. And, you know, who appointed this kid, this child? Who deputized him? Who gave him the role as guardian or protector of the community? You know, this is a fantasy that living in that kid's head. He needs help. He needs psychiatric help. He ain't right in the head, because this is not what normal 17-year-olds are up to. And I really don't see any guilt or remorse on his face for killing those two people. They're dead. It sets a dangerous precedent. This is, I forgot the term, but he's taken the law in his own hands. And, you know, he's just living out a fantasy, I think.
Dave, it's a horrible thing that the legal establishment is helping him to do it. I mean, if he does this at 17, what's next?
But imagine, you know,
He looks like he feels emboldened.
Yes.
Imagine if he was black or Hispanic. He would not be getting the attention this kid is getting. He is guilty. He's guilty, and he needs to be put in some kind of correctional facility for minors. I mean, he's got to pay for what he did.
Dave, I hear you. But I don't know if that's going to happen, Dave. Let's go to Anita from the South Side. Thank you, sweetie, for calling in. Anita, what's on your mind?
This is Natalie Santita.
Natalie, hey, I'm sorry. It's okay. What's going on, Natalie? Good hearing your voice.
First of all, if he had to say, and good morning to attorneys as well, if he had been black or Latino, he'd have been shot dead on the spot.
Right there.
Walking around with an assault rifle. But let me say this, with them putting him on the stand, kids kill. And kids kill with malice. Okay? The youngest one who was ever in prison, the big guy, black, killed 3 women. And Clinton went back to that town. I can't remember his
the
name.
Scottsboro Boys? That was rape.
Law.
I'm thinking of the Scottsboro Boys, but that was rape.
Yeah, he was a young man, heavy young man. But Clinton actually went back to this state to write a law. They made a law to keep this young man in jail.
Mm-hmm.
So kids kill with malice, and it's just unfortunate to watch what's going on. Like your previous caller stated, a lot of points are not being brought not being put forth, and I mean, I just can't imagine this 17-year-old walking around with an assault rifle, and I mean, what is this?
Wait, Natalie.
What is this reason?
Natalie, stay right there, because my mind is blown too. I've got brain matter just blowing out my head right now. I mean, CK, is it confirmed that his mother drove him to Kenosha? Number one. Because now, I heard that in the beginning, right? But if you read the press accounts now, not the original press stories, because I had to go keep all these papers, mounted of papers I have here. The original stories mentioned that. But now the stories that are being written today they are protecting his mother. They don't even mention that. CK, I've got before we belong to you.
Right, and I'm going to say very quickly, there's been no evidence that I've seen in trial about his mother driving him. There's been evidence of his mother's engagement. I think the first witness talked about his mother briefly, the relationship in the family, and he talked about buying the AK-7, buying the weapon. But there is protection of the mother. I'm surprised that she's not been charged with something because he was a minor at the time. But what I'd like to say, Santita, about this case is going to reveal a lot about our judiciary, about our system, and people need to think about who they elect as judges, number one. Number two, we need to think about where we are when it comes to the stand your ground or self-defense laws in different jurisdictions. Number three, we need to think about how we are allowing certain minors to be emboldened if he is acquitted, and the message that will send to people throughout this country about their ability of what they can do when there are protests, legitimate protests. We have to look at this case very carefully, and finally, people must show up for jury duty, register to vote, and be included in this process. You can't sit by and protest and be upset about the outcome if you're not doing everything that you are entitled to as a citizen of the United States, serving on jury duty, because next to serving in the military, which is the greatest service that you can give to this country. As a veteran, as I'm not a veteran, but as someone who has many people in my family served in the military, that's your greatest service as we approach Veterans Day. But next to that, serving on jury duty is the second greatest civic duty that we should give to this country.
Everybody think about it. And you know what? In order to be a part of a jury, you have to be registered to vote, which is why what happened in Florida is such a travesty. As we got 1.4 to 1.5 million more people who had already served their time, paid their debt to society, as they were pulled, as they were denied their full rights as citizens. That is how you get to be on a jury. You've got to register to vote, and you've got to be involved. You got to be involved. I enjoy this punditry, boy. Legal Q&A with CK. What a blessing you are. Everybody is seeing your brilliance, and I'm so excited about it. When is the next time you're going to be on Court TV?
I'm going to be on Court TV in about 5 minutes. I'm covering both the Ahmaud Arbery case as well as the Rittenhouse case and others. And I'm also going to be covering for ABC next week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, in 3-hour increments. Across the board covering these trials.
Oh, is this exciting? Oh, I'm so happy. I love it. Everybody, at CK Hoffler on Twitter. And so everybody follow up with Court TV, ABC, and all of these other networks, and let them know that we want more CK. How about that? I love you, everybody.
But let me say, Santita, this is my favorite place to give legal commentary. The Santita.
That's my sister. I love you. I love you, and I love all of you. And let's keep it locked here, everybody. Continue to pay attention. I love you. God loves you more. Let's love each other, everybody. See you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. CK, thank you so much. Natalie, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Well, you know what? I've got to relinquish the studio in a couple of minutes. What you have the final word today?
Okay. I pretty much said what I wanted to say. But you know what? I would like to reiterate
Did I not tell you back in August that you were not going to mandate the police and the fire to take those
Absolutely.
vaccinations?
Look, let me tell you, when they talk about Striketober and all of that, what they continue to, they don't miss it. They just don't want to discuss it. These people are angry about this. And now you have white, middle class and white upper middle class people, working class people who have middle and upper middle class incomes, who are now losing those incomes, relinquishing those incomes. Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady are but the tip of the iceberg. So don't get mad with me.
Absolutely.
Don't get mad with me, because see, it's clear that I'm not allowed to have this conversation, right? Black folks can't have this conversation. Kyrie can't have this conversation. But Tom Brady can, number one, he has the right not to answer the question, and that is his right, because that's personal, privilege, medical business, which is supposed to be private. But he will tell you, go read my book, which is about nutritional health supplements. Okay. Aaron Rodgers says, you know what, I'm sorry about the trouble I've caused, but I'm not sorry about what I said. But we relegate, I mean, I'm so tired of, the black tax that we have to pay all the time. Yeah, boom, everybody, I'm saying it.
All the time.
All the time. All the time. But you know what? The good thing about this moment, Natalie, is that everybody's seeing it.
But not just that. I told you in the beginning they were going after female-dominated professions. Yes. Because women in this country are bullied. We are expendable and we're bullied. And they were not going after pilots and police that are dominated at 80 and 90% white male. White men in this country are not going to be mandated. And I knew it back in August, and now it's coming to light. They're not going to be mandated.
And good. Maybe good. But the reason I say good is because I think it's going to make people think. That's important. That's important because, look, when you start regulating this, then something else comes. When you start losing rights, everybody be very careful. Be very careful about the loss of rights. And I'm someone who believes in having access to all of the therapies that could keep us safe from, not just from COVID, because COVID has a high survivability rate, quite frankly. I'm saying breast cancer. Black women are more likely to die from breast cancer than just about anybody. We can't get treated.
Santita, say this, Santita. The problem for me is that they tested like 4,000 black people. Did that 4,000 include black women who have the highest rates of breast cancer, have the highest rates of infant mortality? Did they check to see if that will impact them at all? How could they have with just 4,000 people being tested? There are a lot of unanswered questions.
Absolutely.
And I'm not anti-vax. I've had my vaccines all my life. But it's just with this, it was just rushed, and it was just too many unanswered questions, and the eeriness of how it sends a signal to yourself. I had sisters with Huntington's. I still don't really understand what that disease was. So when I hear these people just sign on to this, it's just trouble. It's just bothersome for me. And then to hear all this other gobbledygook about, that this political. No, it's not political for everybody. Some people have some real concerns about this. And I think that it's unfair for you to be lumped into this group just because you don't want to be vaccinated. And around the country, too, they're not saying a lot of people are getting infusions. They're not talking about that. And a lot of people getting those infusions are people who have gotten COVID who were fully vaccinated. There's a lot going on that they're not saying, which
Well,
is
you know
also
what?
trouble.
They haven't stopped the conversation, I tell you that. And so my thing is, that's why I have Dr. Deborah Furr-Holden, who supports vaccinations. That's why I have her on every day. Dr. Knighton is on almost every day. And all I'm trying to do is get information out there and get people. I want to create an environment in which people can speak and can be respected, whatever your position, whatever it is. That's what's important.
Absolutely.
The fact is, some people have taken these shots and they've done quite well. The doctors said that my father, he might not have had as good an outcome had he not had his vaccines. Okay, great. Although I've seen some other effects with him, but I'll leave that alone. But you know what? Okay, good for him, because his case was not as severe as my mother's. That having been said, There's some other people who sustained serious injury. Speak to them. Let them speak. Senator Ron Johnson is having hearings up on the Hill right now. Acting like those hearings are not happening is crazy. All they're doing is increasing mistrust. And that is very dangerous for all of us. It's dangerous.
And Santita, who's to say, I mean, in your father's case, that he wouldn't have done as well on Redemption, who also has an excellent recovery rate. You know,
And as does ivermectin, they've lied about that. Ivermectin, there is an animal grade ivermectin, and then there is a human human grade ivermectin, which won a Nobel Prize, by the way. So they need to stop it. Just tell the truth so that people can trust you, so that they can respect you, and we can move forward. That's all I'm saying. Just do that. If you don't do that,
anything they say.
well, let me tell you, all you have to do is look at Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. I mean, these are real white guys, okay? And they're not backing down. And guess what? They have a lot of support. They have a lot of support out here. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do what my ancestors tried to do in the Civil War. Duck. How about that? Because this fight is above my pay grade, okay? I say, you got white boys out here who are mad as the Dickens, and they are looking you in the eye. And Aaron Rodgers said yesterday, I'm sorry about all this trouble, but I am not sorry about my position. Next. Joe Rogan is the most popular podcaster in the United States. The man who Aaron Rodgers talks to has 10 million subscribers. Y'all stop it. You're not gonna bully white people. White people black folks got dragged to America. White folks ran out of Europe because they were running away from royalty and everything else. So they have another kind of view of America. They say, wait a minute, this is my last chance at freedom. And they are not playing. Boom. Mic drop on that.
I knew it.
See, they're looking for liberty. I'm still looking for freedom. There's a difference. Okay?
There is a difference.
Okay?
There is a difference.
I'm still looking for that.
They weren't going to mandate these white men. Not in this country.
So
they keep bullying the women, but they're not going to mandate this. And then my thing is, if you're not going to mandate it for them and come up with all these scenarios for them, then don't come at me as a woman, as a black woman especially, and have all these mandates for me.
Honey, let me tell you something.
This disparity has got to stop.
You're not going to bully women for long. How about that? That ain't going to work. You know you can't do anything with a woman when a woman's made up her mind. There's no one stronger than a woman. I know it on my own Christian experience because I know how strong my own mama is. You know who runs the Jackson house? My mama does. No sugar. Don't you be fooled. My mother runs that thing, and she runs it today. When she says something, everybody stops, starting with her husband. How about that? Yeah, whatever you have to say. Yeah. That's what I know.
He's the great Reverend Jackson.
And he wouldn't be great without her. How about that? We all know that.
How about that?
Okay? Because God trusted women enough to have children, not a man. See, women need to grab onto our own power. How about that? God trusted us so much that he made us the vessels of life. When a real woman stands up, all mess sits down. Men stop cursing. They stop being vulgar around you when they feel that you are living up to your womanhood. Women have to stand up and change things in this world. And I'm talking about everything. We're the ones who set the moral tone. We're the ones who have to do it. Stop the ridiculous. Stop it. That is not the route to womanhood. That is not where it is. It's not where it is. It is not your sexuality. It's so much more than that. That has nothing to do with anything. Nothing to do with anything. And that's what help our young people and really and change the tide of the popular culture. The popular culture has become very vulgar. And we just say, well, it's not cute. It's ugly. It's vile. And you should not want your daughter, your niece, or anyone you love to be disregarded, to be held in such low regard, to be seen as a thing, to be messed over. Shame on us. We're the ones who are doing this. Women have to stop. Women have to stop. Women have to stop, and we're the ones who have to reset the moral compass in our society. We're the ones who have to do it, which means you can't be hanging at the club every night. You can't be running out dating from the same pool as your children. No, you cannot. It means you cannot get a man back by sleeping with his friends. No, you cannot do that. You weren't even designed for that. Remember, eggs are precious, sperm is cheap. Stop it, everybody. Let us grow up and let us evolve into the creatures that God made us to be. We're not there yet. Natalie, would you like to say something before I go? Because they're going to put me out the studio.
There's a lot of power in no. Just say no. But there's a lot of power in just saying no to all the nonsense. Just say no.
Just say no. And you know what? And say yes to God. How about that? I'm going to stay right there on that piece. Why don't you try that?
End it on that.
Just try that.
End it on that.
Hey, try that. Try doing something. Try. Don't do it your way. Have it your way. No, that's Burger King, sweetie. Have it God's way. Why don't you try and do that? My mama says every time I see her now, when I was a little girl, when I'd leave the house, she'd say, make sure you're a young lady. She'd give me a kiss. And that was the admonition before I left. Now she says, before I leave, she'll give me a kiss and she'll say, be a good person. How about that?
Yes.
So everybody,
God's way.
let's just be good people. Yeah, come on. Let's just be good people. Let's do that. Let's be good people. Let's do that. Oh, Paula loves it when I rant. Well, you know, sometimes this builds up, girl. Natalie brings it out of me. You and Natalie. Paula. Natalie. And when Natalie calls, she is like, girl, look, I've been holding this up. She's been storing it up. So, Natalie, I love you. And you know what? Event now that people are coming back together, and we're going to do something that's going to be safe, and we're going to get the Santita Jackson family that's in Chicago together. And if you want to come in from out of town, we'll have a nice meal and sit around and talk and laugh with each other. How about that, Natalie? Why don't you help me to think that through?
I would love that. I would love that because first of all, I love to eat.
Who? Hello.
I would absolutely love that. We need to have a round table. Yes.
We're going to do that. We're going to do it. Would the weekend work better?
Santita's round table.
All right.
Well, I work on Saturdays. I'm off actually off on Mondays. So Mondays are good. Sundays are good after church. We could do Santita's round table when
Okay.
Just let me know. I'll make it happen for me.
And just send me a direct message with your information, Natalie.
I sure will.
Okay.
I sure will. I'll do that. I would love that.
You're gonna work with us on that. Okay, we'll have Chapearl make some vittles. We'll have to have a fee if Chapearl has some vittles because I gotta
fine.
But I promise you.
Give a donation to the organization. I have no problem with that.
Well, no, honey, I'm telling you, this wouldn't be Push, this would be me. But the thing is, Chapearl sure can cook, everybody. Oh my gosh. What'd you say? Dave said truth telling isn't ranting. Well, I hear you, but Paula and I kind of have a thing. We kind of laugh about that, and she and Chapearl called them my rants when I say what I said. But I'll add more to it before I'll take any of it back. I think morally we're on the wrong course.
I hate that too. Why is it that women are ranting?
But that's okay.
Why is it when they're speaking truth to power? It's not ranting. You're speaking truth to power.
But that's okay because they didn't mean any harm with that. So I'm not mad. I'm just saying, boom. I think more of us, if more women stood up, a lot of foolishness would sit down. It would end.
Yeah.
It would end. It would end. All these things.
Get my information to you.
Please do that, okay? Deborah Cozy Lane sending you much love. Oh, Keith, you would fly in for that? You know what? We're going to figure this out, okay? Because it's going to be something fun, and I want to do something, but I had to wait for things to open up a little bit more, and we're going to have certain safety protocols, okay? Because I want everybody to be tested. I want to know what your COVID status is, so that we can, just have a nice day or two, okay? We're going to do that. So, and Natalie's going to help me, and so is Paula.
I will.
And so is Dave, and so is Andre, and everybody here. Deborah, everybody. Well, Lorraine and Mark, because Lorraine and Mark are here. D-Ray, all of that. D-Ray loves my ending segments. Well, I gotta let everybody go. I love you, Natalie. Thank you so much. Here.
I love you too.
Send me that information.
Thank you. And have a great day, everybody. I sure will.
God bless everybody. I love you. See you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. Bye-bye.